Hey folks, it's Amy McDonald here. Welcome to the Business of Yoga speaker series. So excited to introduce our very first guest for the series today, Kia Miller. Hello, Kia, welcome.
Thank you. So excited to be here with you.
Oh, we're going to have a great conversation. I'm going to get to your professional bio in just one moment, but tell everybody, whereabouts are you at the moment?
Right now, I am at the Himalayan Institute in Pennsylvania, the United States, leading my 200-hour teacher training. This building that I'm currently in has been an ashram for about 45 years. So there's a lot of residents who are still here, and there's a spiritual leader, and it's just the most extraordinary place for a teacher training program because all the elements of yoga are here.
Wow.
In terms of all the lifestyle elements. So we're having a blast. Truly, these people are lit up and can't get enough. So yeah, it's fun to be here.
It must be amazing to do a teacher training in that sort of an environment. I imagine it would be the first time some of those folks have been to a working ashram. Do you think?
It absolutely. It's the first time most people who come here have been to a working ashram because there's not really that many of them, and not many of them that have survived, this long.
Yeah.
And it's only just recently that they've started to shift their model slightly to invite people like me to come and do teacher trainings. The spiritual leader is my teacher, Pandit Rajmani Tiganath. So it makes sense for me to come here and have that sort of spiritual umbrella.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm nerding out already. Okay, let me get to the formal part before we jump any further into it. So here we go. Celebrated teacher Kia Miller has an ability to translate the subtle teachings of Kundalini yoga in a highly accessible way. Kia's study of yoga began when she was 15. She is certified in both Hatha and Kundalini yoga and teaches workshops, retreats, such as the one she's on right now, and teacher trainings throughout the world. Kia's classes are a powerful mix of asana, breath, meditation, and chanting that will leave you feeling uplifted and empowered, and you can practice with her, as I have enjoyed doing on Yoga Glow.
Yay. Great. Yay for Yoga Glow.
So I'm wondering if we can, I've got a nuts and boltsy question to start with.
Great.
Because you have a business that's Radiant Body Yoga, and you also have like a personal brand. Like if we search for you online, your URL is your name.
Yes.
People seem to spend a lot of time cogitating on what should I do? Should I use my name? Can I call myself, I don't know, Shining Lotus Yoga, whatever? So I'm interested to know about this. What's Radiant Body Yoga? What does that mean to you, that as far as the name of your business?
Yeah, well, to me, all yoga is like yoga. And so the only reason that I branded it is because it's necessary if you want to have a teacher training school, which I knew that I did. And then you need to have a brand and you need to have a trademark, et cetera, et cetera. So it was just where my love of teaching yoga and the business of yoga merged at a deeper level. So it came out of necessity. And the radiant body in Kundalini Yoga, Yogi Bhajan described it as that essence of yourself, your soul that is radiating through. It's that luminous being within you that we're using the yoga practice to go in towards, to experience fully. So it made sense to me to call my yoga Radiant Body.
Got it. And so for people who, are freelancing or doing the renting church halls to teach yoga on a Monday night and all of these sorts of things, it would make sense then that if they have their own name as their personal brand, like people would still, do you think people recognize you? Well, they obviously would recognize you more by name than by Radiant Body, but would people still find you because they're looking for the Radiant Body brand, do you think?
It's an interesting question. I'm not sure. It's I've been leading my own teacher trainings. I was leading YogaWorks' teacher trainings for many years before that, but I've only been leading my own for about 5 years. So now that students who've done my trainings want to go and teach Radiant Body Yoga, now the brand is taking on its own life, which again, it's not something that I set out to intend to do. It's just the result of what I had to do.
Yeah.
And so getting and building a life of its own, you know, as the community of Radiant Body Yoga trainees and now teachers has grown. So it's just an interesting phenomenon, you know?
Yeah, I like it. And it's nice to sort of see behind the curtain that this is not just sort of some like big empire building
Yeah.
line of merchandise. Not that that's anything wrong with that, but it's curious about how your business evolves over time, how the external influences you find yourself somewhere you didn't perhaps anticipate.
Yeah, exactly. And it all makes sense where I am at now, but it's not that I set out and I said, oh, I'm going to brand myself and then I'm going to do this and then I'm going to do this. It was more like, oh, okay, if I want to do this, then I need to brand myself.
Yeah.
And then otherwise, as you see on my social media sort of tags, it's just Kia Miller Yoga.
Yeah.
Because Radiant Body Yoga with Kia Miller was what it was to begin with, and it was just simply too long.
Too long. That's a hefty hashtag.
So for practical purposes, I just thought, oh, well, Kia Miller Yoga, that's fine. You know, and anyway, ultimately, maybe the Radiant Body brand becomes something that isn't just me. And so in a way, it seems to serve that potentiality if that should ever, you know, evolve that way.
Well, like you said, that's already evolving. If you have a group of professionals who have trained up under you, then that's it's already their imprimatur. Wow. Another thing that you won't know is that when people say, "Oh, what websites would you recommend I go look at for good ideas to have a nice website myself?" I always tell people to go look at yours. It's great. It's got all the elements. It looks really good.
You know, I have the incredible blessing that somebody who I met in my class, a wonderful designer, she creates my website. She does all my visual media. And then I have another team of photographers, the two of them, who shoot everything for me. So it's been about since 2009 that we've all been working together.
Oh, wow.
And so that just feels like a really supportive relationship that we have. They really get me. They get what I'm putting across. So the photographers capture it visually, and then the designer, you know, does that representation for me, you know, in the website and my flyers and stuff. So I just feel very fortunate, actually.
Well, and maybe that's part of the reason why it comes across in such a compelling way, because they know each other, they know you. You've all been on a journey together since 2009, and that familiarity comes through. It's cohesive.
Yes, and I think that that when you kind of know what it is that you're putting across. So, for example, this idea of radiance and connecting to our inner radiant luminosity, our brilliance, if you like. Therefore, I know the kinds of images that I want to capture that can portray that. So I'll go on a shoot with these guys to some magical desert in California, for example, but I'll have a few themes that I want to cover, that I want to portray in an image way that I feel like represents the yoga that I'm sharing. And so that's kind of how that spans out.
I love that. And just for folks who, if I may just use what you said to illustrate the point, that for people who are considering having a photo shoot or haven't done it before and they know they need to go do it, what I'm hearing you say is they're the professionals, they know how to make everything look fantastic, but you come to the session with a very clear vision of what it is that you want. And I'm assuming you have a communication process with them so that vision gets to be shared, and you're not, for people.
Yeah, we do. We storyboard, we plan in that way, we pick all the outfits, it's a whole creative process that goes into it, which I really love. So by the time you get to the shoot, everything's already planned, and then the magic happens because you're not trying to make magic. You've already planned and gone through so many processes that you can just see what then evolves in the moment, given that you've got the clothes, you've talked about the kind of imagery, the photographers know. Then I just trust. They say, go here, do that, I do it, and it works. And then I'm like, oh, maybe if I do this, and then that works. So
I love it. I always say to my clients, you know, you're a yogi. You're used to people telling you exactly what to do with your body. Tell the photographer it's okay to tell you to turn your foot out or read your, like, we're accustomed to taking those
Yes.
cues.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
So these days, would you say that the majority of your business is teacher trainings? Like, what's the blend of the different elements that make up your business?
Those are my big rocks, you know. So I have this dance with my husband around scheduling because we like to do a lot of our scheduling together. And so my big rocks are my teacher trainings, my 200-hour, and then the modules that make up my 300-hour. So when I look at my year ahead, those are the things that I block in first because they're number one. And then after that, retreats, and then after that, whatever conferences show up that fit in my schedule that year, so that I don't overwhelm myself with conferences and festivals, because it's a lot of moving around to do that. But those three elements are really, they make up the majority of what I'm doing these days.
And you teach in Santa Monica, right? If you're teaching at home, is that where your classes are?
Yes, it has been. May last year, I stopped teaching my local classes, which was a massive thing for me because I'd been there for about 15 years.
Wow.
And so now when I go back, I sub, which is fantastic. I get to connect.
Imagine turning up and getting you. That'd be exciting.
Well, it's just there's no pressure, and I show up, and you know, I've been teaching there for so long, and the students who've been coming there with me for so long that they'll show up. And so it's a grand reunion, and maybe I get to teach for a couple of weeks, maybe a couple of months, maybe just a couple of days, but it's that way to kind of check in with the community. So that's what I'm doing right now. For sure, that's an essential element in my life. I love that connection, direct connection with community, especially people that you've kind of grown up with, so to speak. Yeah.
And just then, for anybody who thinks, oh, I'm not a real yoga teacher because all I do is sub, I love that. You've just given people permission to own it.
Absolutely. Gosh. Yes. Yeah.
Any tips for people who do sub about, you know, how do you teach a great class when you're teaching someone else's yoga?
Yeah, you know, my motto has always been to emulate the teacher that I'm subbing for. That doesn't mean that I change who I am, but that means that if that person teaches a strong level 2-3 class, for example, I'm going to teach a stronger class than might be my normal pace, because that's what those students want. So if a teacher teaches, you know, pranayama meditation, of course I would do that as well. So for me, what I find is it's like you're setting your ego aside, and you're just showing up humbly to serve in the way that the students are you're showing up to serve in the way that they're expecting, if that makes any sense, but without losing your own self-identity. So for me, that works best, because there's nothing more disorienting than going to your teacher's class that you love and then finding out there's a substitute. And that's okay. You know, we adapt. We go, okay, there's a substitute. Wow, somebody new. But if that person then starts to teach something in a very different manner and way, I think that it's disorienting for the students. And so I think that as much as we can emulate the teacher without losing our own self-identity, and obviously if you're teaching for a longer period of time, then much more of you and your style is coming through. But if you're dropping in for a couple of classes here and there, I think you want to maintain that sort of rhythm that the teacher who holds that space regularly has. And I think that way you really negate a lot of the resistance that students have naturally when they're like, oh, it's a substitute. So that, and just, you know, helping people to feel safe and grounded within the first sort of 10 minutes goes a long way, because as soon as somebody trusts you, they'll trust you. So finding little ways to do that. And then lastly, what I would say is, if you're subbing someone's class, make sure you go to their class. Go to their class before you teach it.
Yeah.
You know, as much as you can, if you know you're going to teach it for a while. And then the other thing is, pick classes to sub where you know the teachers and you love the teachers already, because then your style and their style are going to have a lot of commonalities. And I think there's an art to being a good sub.
That's what I was hearing you say, that in fact it's a teaching skill to sub well.
Yes, I think so. I've asked people to sub for me, and then, for example, said to them, because in my morning classes I didn't used to like to play music, because I like to leave that space a little bit more open for people. And do you mind just, I love the way you teach, do you mind just not playing music? And I've had a teacher say to me, but I play music, that's what I do. In which case, then that to me was, well, okay, thanks. Maybe you could sub for my 6 o'clock sometime where I have music, right?
Yeah.
For me, the moment there was, clearly that wasn't the right fit for her. But if I were in her shoes and I wanted to sub, I would let go of the music. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's just about a sensitivity and respect, I guess.
Yeah. And again, that just didn't happen to be right for her. But I think there is an art to it. Yes. And when we're looking to get in the door of a studio, we want to be saying yes to as many subbing opportunities as we can. And I think if we are looking to make that studio our home studio, then we just want to take as many of those classes as we can from different teachers and make personal relationships with them. It used to be at YogaWorks that the staff would find the subs, but in the last sort of, it's been the teachers who have been finding the subs. So therefore, if you want to sub for class, you need to have that personal relationship with the teacher.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But it's a wonderful thing, you know, because if students love you and they give feedback to the studio, which is the way that YogaWorks does it, that's you start by subbing, you get feedback from the students, you get enough of those feedback forms, and voila, you have a class, you know.
It's I mean, I live in the country, and I have the very good fortune of living in one of those hipster country towns where there's far too much yoga and places to teach it, and you can hire any space you like. So that sort of, I don't want to say cutthroat, but there's a different dynamic, energetic dynamic at play. Big studios.
Yes, absolutely. And in a very saturated market like Los Angeles, you know, it used to be the city of actors and actresses, and now it's really the city of yoga teachers.
You know, when people talk to me about India and how many times have you been to India and all of this, I actually think, you know what, my spiritual home is Los Angeles. It's not Rishikesh, like, really, if we're honest about it.
I love it.
I wonder if we could talk a little bit about blending traditions. So I read on your website that you came up originally through like Ashtanga Vinyasa life, and now it's more about the Kundalini and the teachings of Yogi Bhajan. Like, how do you bring those together, and what would you say to people who are thinking, maybe I'd like a bit of this and I don't know, can I have both? How do you mix things together?
Yeah, I think that whenever you mix things together, you have to have a very strong understanding of what the things are independent of one another and what the rules of engagement are, so that you can mix in a manner that makes sense. So for me, I was an Ashtangi and Vinyasa teacher first, but then I met Kundalini Yoga, and it transformed my life. And then before I knew it, really, I was being asked to teach at Yoga Journal Conference and other places, and they weren't asking me to teach Vinyasa, they were asking me to teach Kundalini. And so that's really how I started to teach so much Kundalini. And I of Kundalini Yoga and how it works and why it works and where's the power lie and how to transmit that, etc. But at the same time, my own personal practice has always had a very strong asana component to it, because it's kept me grounded and present and healthy and feeling really connected in my physical body. The Kundalini practices are very based on how to move energy, how to ignite the pranic body, how to really, in a constant manner, dissolve a lot of the stuff that holds us bound, you know, conditions, habits, behaviors, beliefs, judgments, etc. And this lines in Kundalini Yoga, especially as taught by Yogi Bhajan, about how to teach the Kriyas.
Yeah.
I have done my best to hold absolutely true to the integrity of what I learned in my Kundalini teacher training, and yet also bring in this whole element of vinyasa, because I believe that with the sedentary lifestyle that so many of us live, that we need both. We need a very physical practice and something energetic that can really help us to cut through the stress that so many of us are caught in. So to me, the two, using one as a warm-up, the vinyasa as a warm-up, and then the kriyas, it's like the perfect blend. And then if I can only teach my vinyasa class, or if that's what people want, then I bring in a lot of the information that I understand about energetics, and I bring it into a vinyasa class. So that's kind of what I've done with the Radiant Body Yoga. You can teach a full asana class and add in a lot of energetic dimensions that bring up more power and potency. Or you can teach a Kundalini Kriya with a really good understanding of how to prepare the body for that Kriya and that practice, so you maximize the energetic potential that's coming through the Kriya and the pranayama and meditation, because your body is prepared and grounded and, you know, ready for that.
Oh my God. I've got to say though, here, of the Kundalini classes that I have done, my body is never prepared for those kriyas. You think you're kind of doing nothing, and then it's like, I'm quite certain that any moment I'm going to either spontaneously combust or simply just die. I guess it's hard, some of those things. All of that energy work.
It's amazing, and it's supposed to be hard. Right? We're so bound by this egoic identity and what we believe is possible or not possible. And then you're being asked to wave your arms, you know, for 7 minutes or something in little circles with breath of fire. And you meet your edge.
There's always this moment where I realize I am so pissed off at the teacher, and then it just goes into laughter, like, oh, here I am again, back in that version. Pop.
Isn't it amazing? Exactly. It's so cleansing. It's like the whole emotional body just gets to clear out, and we get to, but Yogi Bhajan said, poke, provoke, confront.
That's exactly what it is.
So try not to walk out of the class before you're elevated. I guess that's
a Kundalini teacher said to me once that you're not supposed to enjoy Kundalini yoga during the yoga. You're supposed to enjoy it afterwards.
Oh, I like that. Yes. The moments between the exercises are where all the integration happens, right? And the rest and the blessing of those moments that kind of remind us that we need those moments in our life in general. Right? Between the
I'm conscious that we're having a bit of a
people
Wi-Fi.
in the United States. Oh yeah.
Go ahead. It's all great.
Is it okay now?
As it is. Yeah.
I was just going to say, people in the United States have really lost the ability to just be. We're all on an agenda. We're all achieving, overachieving, busy, doing, you know, that art of just being and enjoying what it means to be this human being, and to, you know, experience nature, whatever other glories there are. It's like, wow. Yeah,
I agree. It's not just the United States. And you know this, you're a global woman. Can we talk a little bit about the teachings? Let me preface this better. One of the things that I hear again, and I get some interesting email from people that I don't know on this topic, is how dare you charge for yoga, and yoga is a spiritual practice and you shouldn't be looking to make money from it, and there is something, you know, you can't call yourself a spiritual person if you're seeking to grow a business, and all of this, which is different to my personal viewpoint. But what I understand of one of some of Yogi Bhajan's teachings in the Kundalini method is that actually it's for householders, and as such,
Yes.
there's some really powerful, empowering teachings about abundance that we get from your tradition. That there's none of this drama about you should be broke to be, you know, have a spiritual practice. Could you share anything on that topic?
Yeah, I think it's a misconception that people have about uh, the teachings of yoga. And you know, most of the teachers I have dedicated their lives to their study, and they've dedicated a lot of their own money to their study, and they feel compelled to share the teachings because they've had such profound personal experiences. And yet, you know, one's life needs to be sustainable at the same time. And Yogi Bhajan was very clear about that money is energy. And
yes.
in fact, before he taught a class, when there were a bunch of hippies following him in Los Angeles and nobody had money, he would throw money in the parking lot so that somebody would have a bit of money to come to the class, because it's an exchange of energy.
Yes, I love that.
And to that honoring of the exchange of energy, and how much we value something when we've had to exchange some of that in order to receive the teachings or whatever it is. So I think there's a lot in this, and it doesn't mean that the teachings should be extraordinarily expensive or anything like that, but I think that each of us have a value that we're adding to those who come to receive teachings. And if we're doing a really good job, we're empowering those people with the skills to help others. And so the chain keeps moving on, you know, the energy keeps moving through. And in order for, well, I can just take myself as an example, you know, I taught for 15 years public classes, probably 10 years of that. I had very little money. YogaWorks was certainly not paying me anything near a living wage. Maybe it was enough for, you know, part of my groceries every year. And I was teaching 11 classes a week.
Wow.
You know, and so what I see then are beautiful souls, beautiful young teachers just wearing themselves out and losing that that precious life force and drive and desire to share, because the income stream from it, those serving so many would be feeling better served and nourished themselves. So I think in this kind of chain of passing on information and the wealth of information, there has to be that acknowledgement of the actual wealth, you know, the wealth of the world that is enabling that to happen. So when I started to actually run my own teacher trainings and stuff, then my financial situation started to shift. And then I had more time for deeper study. Then I had more time to write more curriculum so that then I could present that. And so, you know, I think it's really important that those of us who are serving in this way, that it is sustainable. Because if we are actually embodying the teachings of yoga, then that wealth and that abundance is a natural byproduct of us, you know, living in that space. And so I really get it. Yogi Bhajan was really always taught this is a path of prosperity. It's not a path of austerity. The austerity comes from facing our own inner work. The austerity is our own inner work, facing the places where we're holding and we're resisting so that we can be even more brilliant and bright and radiant and more of service. So to me, that's the austerity of the yoga practice. It's not that we can't enter into the marketplace, so to speak, of the yoga world, because we live in a commerce-driven world.
Yes.
And unless, we all live in communities under ashrams and, money isn't changing hands, then I don't see a way that yogis could have a sustainable life teaching yoga. And then those who are running businesses and teaching yoga, it's much harder for them to find the deep practice time that keeps their teaching alive and sustainable. Not to say it can't be done. I see examples of it being done. People doing regular jobs so that they have a roof over their heads and they can sustain themselves, and then teaching part-time. And that can work for some, but for those of us like myself, all I wanted to do was be absolutely immersed in the teachings.
Yeah.
So the other part of this is, I think that once we start to find ways to serve through the teachings, that the natural intelligence of the universe starts to bring the financial opportunities to us. And I think that underlying abundance, prosperity, consciousness is very important. Because when you start to look at the benevolent, beautiful, creative world around us, and you start to understand that there is no lack, there's really no lack, and that when we truly put ourselves in a place to serve others, that abundance will flow. That's sort of the other side of it. But if we are operating from a consciousness of lack, then that lack is what we bring into our lives. So I think as yoga teachers, it's important for us to start to tap into, the deep principles of yoga that speak about, the divine creative consciousness that unites us all. When we start to live and trust in that, then our life is going to be filled with all kinds of abundance and a continuous flow of opportunity in that place of trust in the abundance of all is the key to true prosperity. So
I love all of it. I'm just sort of bathing in all of that wisdom. Beautiful. And I think also sort of in addition to that belief, and for people who are thinking, well, that's fine for you to say, but who are still stuck who are in struggle, financial struggle,
yes.
It can feel.
Yes.
I'm thinking back to when I was teaching, trying to pull together money from teaching classes here, there, and everywhere, and it felt like I definitely had that energy. Well, it's fine for you to say, but how on earth? Like, I can't make that jump. So there will be people that are watching that. I remember the first time someone talked to me about, you can have lots of money and teach yoga, I was just triggered up the wazoo. I just sort of disconnected everything.
Absolutely.
That he said. My own gunk was still very heavy as lack.
Yep.
But so that gets to be a process, right? Like if anyone who's watching is feeling triggered by this, it gets to be the beginning of tickling open a process rather than a wall.
Absolutely. And it's that kind of process. And it's also a process in that, it has to be a step-by-step, intelligent progression. Like you start teaching, you're not making much money, so you keep your day job, Then you start looking for opportunities in teaching, maybe private clients.
Yep.
And then you have to make that decision about how much is my time worth? And that's where a lot of people get tripped up because they're not confident in what they're offering. Okay, so maybe you feel like you need to study more or you need to practice more deeply until you feel like this is what your time is worth. And so keep your day job, keep studying, keep practicing. And then until you get to that point where you start, this is what happened to me. I got to that point where I recognized the value of my time, because I would feel resentful if I went to teach, but that time could have been spent other ways that were equally exciting to me. And I started to recognize, oh, well, then that's the value of my time now. And not to make it sound so much like it's about the money. It was never about the money for me with yoga, but it was about my time and the preciousness of my time. And so finding that balance as well, I think, is important. Do you really want to go teach 10 classes when for very little, when you can teach 4 classes, have more money for it, and therefore be able to prepare better, be able to give better in the moment, etc. So I don't know, I'm just sort of talking here. Hadn't thought through many of these things all the way, but
no,
yeah.
I agree with you. And I think, maybe one day I will have these cities, but right now I don't. Time is a finite resource, and it becomes very, very precious.
Yes, time is precious. And yes, and so we want to decide what we want to do with our time. I think that's what's important. And then what are you going to sacrifice, either way, depending on what it is that you want to do with your time. And then just find a balance. My preference was always to teach group classes over privates until I got to that point in my teaching. And this was probably 10 years in, where I really felt like I had the skills to not take somebody through a physical asana practice, but to get somebody on a spiritual program, of looking at their life, of self-study, of engaging in, activities that were helping them to clear away the areas that they were confused of, the asana practice and the pranayama and meditation practice that was going to support all of that greater self-study. Then teaching one-on-one lit up to a whole other level. Whereas in the early days, the one-on-ones, I felt like I was doing them because I needed to make that money.
Yeah, I love that.
And ultimately, underlying it all is just to have faith and belief in yourself and what you're doing and what you can offer, and trusting the overall abundance in this life. That when we reach out from our heart and we give, and we have that attitude of giving and serving, then the rule of life is simply that as we give like that, energy will come to us and through us. And that energy includes, in my experience, the abundance of enough money to live the life that you need to live. For most of us, teaching yoga is not going to make us millionaires, billionaires at all, but it gives us enough freedom to do what we want to do. And to me, that's the wealth right there.
I totally agree. I'm conscious of time, and I know we'll have to wrap this up, but because a lot of what I do is the nuts and bolts pieces of what you've been talking about. And I really think that when we're offering, like you said, from the heart, from that place where we feel grounded in what we're sharing, when we've come to the point in our journey where it's the right time to take it forward to others, all of the nuts and boltsy pieces fall into place too. Like marketing becomes effortless when you're so in love with what it is that you're doing. You can just talk to anybody about it.
Exactly.
You believe in it. Yeah.
The best advice I was given at the beginning was just teach for 3 to 5 years. Don't worry about anything else. Just teach.
Hone your craft.
Hone your craft. Don't worry about what your specialty is or who your market is or anything. Just hone your craft, hone your craft, hone your craft, because who you are starts to express through how you're teaching, and then you start to recognize more and more about what you are especially suited and skilled at doing.
Yes.
And then rather than trying to think about what you're going to specialize in, which our current, school system teaches us to do, rather than that, just do and start to feel what areas you're more drawn to, where you thrive, and what you and the different ways that you share that really inspire people. That's in my experience.
I think that's a great.
Yoga is at the beginning, it's just much more of an apprenticeship model.
Yes.
I apprenticed with Annie Carpenter for 5 years. Bless her. What a generous, beautiful teacher. And I learned so much serving her. So if we can start our yoga teaching from that idea of just honing our craft, then you will start to see the space and the place that is your specialty in the way that you can serve. Then you can start to hone your more business side around that. You will get results because it will be in alignment with your individual special skill set. Call it Dharma, call it whatever you like. And that's where the prosperity part comes in, because you're serving in the way that your soul really wants to serve. You're serving in a way that is recognized and received and the people. And to me, that's a process to be in.
I've got to contain myself to not just ask you heaps more questions, but
I think I lost you for a moment.
Yes, we're having a little bit of glitchy stuff, but we'll be fine. The potency is coming through nonetheless. Tell us about, people are going to be listening to everything you have to say and be either inspired to pursue some training or re-inspired to do some more training. Tell us about your teacher trainings.
Say that again, sorry, because you broke up. You said something about teacher trainings.
Yes, share with us more. For people that are feeling inspired by everything that you've had to share, how can people come and spend more time with you and get better at what they do?
Great. Well, first, I just want to say for all of those of you who are tuning into this, thank you for tuning into this. And really, my message to you is just to really have faith in yourself, and keep working on practices that really inspire you. And most important of all, keep up your personal sadhana, because the place where we source our juice, where we source that kind of essence of what the tradition of yoga is about, that spiritual vitality, if you like, it comes from our personal practice and that investment of ourself in this relationship with our greater self. And that relationship is what we transmit and translate. As Yogi Bhajan used to say, if your presence does for you, nothing will. So just my encouragement to you is to keep working on your personal practice, because and that's not just asana, right? That's your pranayama and your meditation and your ability to self-reflect, self-correct, integrating the yogic principles of living into your life. There's just no possibility of failure if you do that. That's my firm belief. There's no possibility of failure because you're aligning yourself with the will of the divine. You're aligning yourself with your own innate brilliance and capacity as the human being to be somebody who is here to serve, to help uplift those people who are in need. And I see a lot of people in need right now of the kinds of things that we yogis have been turned on to so graciously by our teachers. So that I would just say first. I lead 200-hour teacher trainings, and my 300-hour is split up into 5 segments. I'm about to actually create a 6th, so there's more options. There's a pranayama training about prana and pranayama, mantra and the yoga of teaching, the meditation in the mind, and awareness and lifestyle, which is really, you know,
Ooh.
skill in action. How do we take all of this self-realization and actually actualize it and live the teachings at a whole other level. So yeah, that's really my intention, was always to create immersive experiences, because in my experience, that's where the deep personal ahas and transformation comes. And that's where we are teaching from when we're really in a luminous space. We're teaching from all of our personal experience. And so that's where the 300 hour came from, this idea of immersing people in specific topics so that then they can take them home and really work with these like subtler elements of pranayama, of, you know, understanding the mind from the yogic perspective and how to work with it and how to purify it, and understanding the core teachings of the Bhagavad Gita or the Yoga Sutras, etc. So yeah, that's what I'm offering around and about. My trainings are like a combination of Hatha and Kundalini from different. Obviously, I'm very inspired. However, with the teachings of Yogi Bhajan, they've been profound for me. So that's what I offer. I'd love to see any of you who are excited to investigate yourself through those practices and learn maybe some deeper skills to share with your classes.
I love that. I'm going to go look at them all now. I love the model too of you get to like pick the subjects that really light you up and go deep, rather than another layer of sort of a bit of everything, which
right.
I love.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And then if we give ourselves a whole period of time, say for example, after immersing yourself in the prana and pranayama training, then you start to become a researcher in your own practice of all the different kind of subtleties of pranayama.
Yeah.
So that then you become an expert on that. And now you have a huge toolbox. And when somebody comes to you with an issue, you have something that can help them to resolve it. You have a tool, if you like. So really, yeah, that's part of the inspiration here. Here's a toolbox. Try it on in your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I also think that yoga teachers as a group of people, we seem to have a fetish for just learn. That's the jnana yogi in all of us. Like we just want to learn more. So I love that there are options for us to specialize and really geek out on. I'm so interested in pranayama, or I'm so interested in applied yogic principles. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, and then practice them, because Yogi Bhajan always said, you know, make yourself you're the scientist, and your body is your laboratory, and don't just take it and teach it. You have to try it on, and you have to try it on for periods of time, so you know that practice and all the dimensions of it, and then therefore you really know how to apply it and who to apply it to, etc., etc. And then I think, I mean, it's extraordinary to be able to meet somebody and to be able to, you know, work with them and have enough of a toolbox that their lives can profoundly shift. Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah. So folks, if you're interested in learning more about Kia's teacher trainings, there's a button there. Click it, go have a browse. I'm going to. There are so many more things we can talk about and the realities of time. So thank you so much for everything that you've shared with us, the wisdom that you've conveyed. It's just the perfect way to start off this series. Thank you. Thank you also for taking time out from your teacher training. Very special. We don't take that for granted at all. It's been an absolute delight, Kia. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. Love and blessings.